Welcome to AI TV. We're broadcasting from AI Expo Africa, which is Africa's largest trade show. And it's a real honor today to welcome Dr. Simon C. from Nvidia, building the artificial intelligence chips driving the AI economy around the world. And Simon's just come straight from a keynote, which was fascinating. And Simon, I just wondered if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, tell people what you're working on at Nvidia.
Sure, thank you, Nick. First of all, I'd like to thank Nick for inviting me to this to Africa. It's been very fascinating. I work in Nvidia as a AI technologist. I run the AI technology centers worldwide. We have about 13 centers right now in the world. And I'm also a adjunct professor in a couple of universities, research in artificial intelligence and statistics and mathematics. Our team basically is to investigate into artificial intelligence algorithms in various applications, for example, like computer visions, natural language processing, and autonomous vehicles, which you normally hear about.
Brilliant. I think one of the key questions I've always had in my mind, and I see it all the time in headlines in the news, is in the West we keep thinking AI is going to destroy jobs, Terminator scenario, killer bots. But when I see talks from the East, so obviously you're from Singapore, you hear talks from South Korea, Japan, China, people see AI as a force for good, something that can help us. I mean, how can we change that narrative? How can we say we in Africa start to see AI as a force for good? I mean, your talk alluded to many ways and policies that are being developed, but how can we do that?
Well, I think the most important thing is that it's just like any other machines or technology, is the way that how we're going to embrace it, right? And there are many things that we find difficulty in our life. In our daily life, in the rural areas, farmers are having a hard time, maintaining the farms. How can we use technology to help them? In the hospital, healthcare is a major issue. How can we use technology, for example, like in the area of artificial intelligence, to actually help these people? There are a lot of problems that require technology to help. So instead of looking at how the technology is going to destroy us, there are a lot of problems that need to be solved, and we could use this technology to actually help mankind.
So if I was, for example, the local government here, so City of Cape Town, the Western Cape government, or Gauteng government in the capital here in South Africa, right now they're thinking about policies and frameworks that are setting the smart technology agenda. What top three, I guess, things would you say to them to consider in putting together a policy to embrace smart technology? Because I think obviously here in Africa we're a little bit further behind. Mm-hmm. But what three things do you think they should really focus on to start that journey?
Well, I think the first thing is to set up a living labs. A living labs of a place where you could allow startups, universities, and many people to actually embrace the technology, experiment with it, try on new things, allow early failures, because that is one of the most important components. Once you have early failures, you know what not to do, and then also have early success. What are the success, and you can build up confidence. So a living lab is very important. The second thing is the talents. Focus on the universities in developing new talents. How the university can develop new curriculums. So but it's not just the universities. It's also the high schools where they're going to be the one that is going to use a lot of this technology. How are they going to embrace it? They must not fear it. They must able to have confidently use it. So we must able to do that. But also at the same time, it's the people who are working right now, practicing engineers like you and me, right? Those are the guys that is going to implement AI technology right now. They have a fear because there is an unknown space. So we must overcome the fear. We must able to train them to say that, well, the technology is not alien, it's not difficult. It is something that you can embrace it and improve your productivity, improve your job value. So these are the things that we need to do. And lastly, but not least, is to educate the entire population about AI. Yeah. I think one of the things that the movie industry, entertainment industry, has actually scared us is that they have give us the concept that Terminators is here, singularities, going to take away all the jobs and stuff like this. We must educate the population that this is not actually the true facts, that the technology is here to help, and we must use our creativity on how actually to use this technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. The number one idea there was a living lab. I'm a big advocate of encouraging greater integration with universities so that the universities become an engine for entrepreneurism. And I think, I don't know how it is in Singapore, but obviously universities are traditionally measured by master's papers, PhD papers, very much research driven. And I'm just wondering, in your part of the world, are they measured on how many businesses they create? Is there an entrepreneurial aspect to some of the university programs in your part of the world?
This is a very interesting question. So it is very common among all the universities to publish paper. Either you publish or you perish. That is the professor.
There's funding, right?
Yeah, that's funding.
Exactly.
That's funding. However, there is two things that fundamentally have started to change over in Asia. One thing is that the way that the fundings are being funded. There are fundings that is fitting for fundamental research where the focus is on paper itself, but there are also fundings for translation research where how they turn a research projects into a product.
No.
Right? So there is a change in that. However, the university are still measured a lot on papers because the world ranking is based on papers and on whatsoever. So in countries like Singapore and Taiwan, what they have is they set up something called the translation labs. And also what they do is also that they appoint commercial people to run centers. Now, let me give you examples about Taiwan. What Taiwan done is that they set up these AI centers where they have a PI, which is a scientist from the university, and then they have a CEO who is the entrepreneur, right? So the PI would run the research projects, having all the professors to contribute research ideas, and the CEO would then take the projects and see how can it turn into a commercial product. So that helps to actually fill the gaps from research into a commercial product.
And what is the investment scene like? I mean, obviously here the venture capital scene is small in relation to other countries, and it tends to be more risk adverse. Now, if you're risk adverse and there's less money, then clearly in the AI space, startups move very quickly.
Yes.
The innovation is moving really quickly. Are you seeing in your part of the world also the higher risk, so earlier funding, seed funding, venture capitalists spending money in that area?
I would say that Singapore is more into the second phase, but Singapore is also pretty much a very risk-averse country, right? Okay. Because being a small country. So what most of the startups is that they because many of the technology is now mature enough, so they are going into the applied phase. Not so much as doing the fundamental research anymore. So they are building up products. And what is good in Singapore is that the government has set up these living labs across the whole country. They are not just building products in their company in the labs, but they have a place to actually experiment, a place to actually trial it. The government is willing to pay for the experiment.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. So that helps. That helps a lot. The VC would then able to see whether the experiment is successful. If the experiment is successful, they are more willing to put in more money.
Sure.
Even if it's not successful, they know where the mistake is, and they can guide the company to go through the right directions.
So, I mean, just to wrap up, Simon, I mean, you gave a fascinating keynote. I learned so much from it. But what's the future for Nvidia in terms of Africa? You've got your centers now around the world. There's more of them emerging. Are there any plans for you guys to look at developing something here on the continent and maybe looking for partners to do that?
Oh yes, definitely. And basically there's a reason why. And again, thank you very much for inviting me. The reason we are now we have a couple of people right now from the headquarters in Santa Clara, from Asia and Europe, are now investigating what can we do over in Africa.
Okay.
The reason is that Africa has a lot of talent. It's a young continent, a lot of young brains and a lot of new ideas. And the important thing is that the people are creative. So question right now is for Nvidia is that how can we able to harness these talents, right? So after this one, I'm going back to the company, giving up, putting in a report to the management and see what will be the next steps. Hopefully, we were able to start collaborating with some of the universities over here
Sure.
as a first step, and then with the local government, and then also with some of the startups and companies in Africa.
Well, that's brilliant, and I hope that in some way that we've helped give you a view of what's going on here. We are a small country, really, even though I guess we're a lot bigger than Singapore. And we really value your insights, Simon. I just want to say thank you very much for coming to the show and coming to talk to us here on AI TV. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.